Gracious and loving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing and acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. Well, we're going to start this week's sermon off a little differently by watching a video. We have the sound ready to go, but just as a warning, the guy speaks somewhat quickly, and I think you'll pick up by watching the video what's going on. But just pay careful attention to it. And with that, Adam, if you'll cue up the video for us. We don't have sound.
That was quick.
That's quick.
That's sort of appropriate with the fireworks. That wasn't planned.
Got a headache. It's raining. My dog is sick. I can't right now. I'm not inspired. It makes me smell bad. I'm allergic to stuff. I'm fat. I'm thin. I'm too weak. Too slow. Too big. I ate too much for breakfast. Got a headache. It's raining. My dog is sick. I can't right now. I'm not inspired. It makes me smell bad. I'm allergic to stuff. I'm fat. I'm thin. It's too hot. I'm not right. I got shit to play. Headache. I'm distracted. I'm exerting myself too much. I love to really, but I can't. I just can't. My favorite show's on. I got a case of lemonade. Tuesday. Wednesday. I don't want to do this. I do something else. New Year's. Sleep. I make a mistake. I got homework. I feel bloated. I got gas. I got hot day. Coach Cage. Mom won't let me on bruise easily. It's too dark. It's too cold. My blister hurts. This is dangerous. Sorry, I don't have a bike. I didn't get enough sleep. My tummy hurts. It's not my jeans. I don't want to look all tired now. I need a better coach. I don't like getting tackled. I have a stomach ache. I'm not the athletic type. I want to get sweaty. You got better things to do. I don't want to slow you down. I have to do this. As soon as I get a promotion, I gotta sit this one out. And my feet hurt.
Just in case you missed some of his lines, he says things like, it's in my jeans, my blister hurts. I have the case of the Mondays, the Tuesdays, the Wednesdays. It all sounds familiar, doesn't it? We all have made excuses at some point in our life as to why we don't want to do something. And that's what our gospel lesson is all about this morning. Making excuses. Lord, I will, but just let me do this one thing first. Lord, I would, but. Lord, if you just understood all the things that I have to do before I can go out into the field. Excuses are a survival technique for so many people. I think we use excuses sometimes to keep us from doing something that we're afraid of. Perhaps afraid that it'll challenge us, something that might change us. Afraid to invite ourselves into something that is new. Jesus was familiar with excuses. He heard them his entire ministry. He heard them from the disciples at times on the journey. As our text reminds us this morning, he heard them on the way to Jerusalem from people he was calling to join him. This morning in our text, Jesus doesn't hold back his words. An excuse is an excuse. Give them up and follow me, he says. Or in the words of our video this morning, just do it. And as a pastor, I get to hear all sorts of excuses. And I don't mean just here locally at the church level. I mean when you go out into the community and someone finds out you're a pastor, their reaction changes. And one of the responses that most often happens is you begin to hear a confession of excuses as to why someone no longer attends church, doesn't believe in religion, or perhaps they've missed so many Sundays in a row. It's as if for some reason they think if they tell me that I can pardon them on behalf of their congregation or their pastor or on behalf of God, when really it's not me that they need to confess to, but to the community they agreed to live out their faith journey in, as well as to their Lord and Savior. And I'm not the only pastor that has this experience. It's not just me. This is pretty much a universal experience for any pastor and their family. So as I was sort of thinking and talking to some of my pastor friends about their encounters, I came across a story from a pastor who dealt with excuses on an airplane. And I've had experiences similar to this, but nothing quite as bad. And I hope you enjoy his tale, because he has quite a way of sharing it. He began saying that he was settling into his seat on this long flight, and he saw a woman begin to enter the middle aisle, maneuvering a huge black bag. It could have easily fit 2 linebackers. It was ridiculous. I have no idea why she was allowed to board the plane with it. She was pushing it and then began pulling it, forcing it into the aisle, and as the captain and stewardess looked on, they just shook their heads. Then, as she began to start down the aisle of first class, she began bumping elbows, spilling bottled water and Chardonnay in her wake. Then she was into the cheap seats, bumping into everyone on the aisle, slowing down all those behind her who had yet to board, trying to force this wide bag down the narrow way. Her hands were turning blood red, and you could see the veins and muscles in her neck begin to strain. And as she began looking up her row number, I realized the inevitable was going to happen. That's right, she was going to sit next to me. So she stopped indeed at my row and looked at the bag, then looked up, wanting help. So together with a few other passengers, we were able to eventually get that gigantic, heavy, and awkward bag up into storage. She took her seat and pulled out her planner, and I took my seat and pulled out my magazine. "So what do you do?" she asked me. And I took a moment. And whenever pastors, he says, have to answer this question, there are 3 typical responses. The first is a glowing comment about how great it is for them to be a pastor. And the second is the venting of all the problems with organized religion and reasons why they don't go to church. And the third is usually silence. And the pastor admits that he was actually hoping for quiet, like most of us do when we fly. She, however, started into option number 2. "Well," she said, "I don't go to church because my family really isn't into it. See, my husband was raised in the church. It was one of those churches that was always boring and never did anything. And now it takes a long time to get the kids ready to go anyway. And we're just so busy throughout the week, and the parking is always difficult. And I never really understand much of anything. I don't really get anything out of it. It's all just ridiculous." "No offense," she concluded. "Oh," I replied. "See, the first problem is our house. We bought this 2-level colonial, but it is just so hard to manage. My friends and most of our neighbors all watch HGTV, and their homes are perfect. So our house has to be perfect too. The kitchen was fine, but it really didn't have that new stainless steel appliance look. And you know, they last longer, and everyone has them now, so we had to put them in. Then we built on this atrium, and we did the landscaping and painted it. But after we got it painted, we realized that the color was becoming less popular, so we repainted it again. And then we changed out all of the lighting, and now I'm beginning to think that we need to tear that down and put something in that's more environmentally friendly." "Oh," I replied. "Then there are our vehicles," she said. "I got this new SUV, but it only seats 5 people comfortably. So whenever the kids' friends want to go anywhere, I have to take 2 cars. And you know my car doesn't get very good gas mileage, and they depreciate so fast. And you wouldn't believe how much the insurance costs us." "Oh," I replied. And as I did, I thought I heard an electric chirp from somewhere in the plane behind me. "Then there's my son," she went on. "He's 13, and you know what 13-year-olds are like at that age. He's in 76 different activities, so the second I get home and off this plane, I have to go pick him up from school and take him to karate, then to rugby, and then French club, and then pick up supper before 4-H and his video game tournament.